When a man tries to get rid of some garbage, he realizes that the true garbage is reality itself. And then we travel to Singapore to take a look at a place so haunted, it may have given us a clue as to how the world's militaries deal with the paranormal forces that threaten us all. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. So first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, everyone get on your feet and give it up for 925 at the morgue. Woohoo, yeah, wee! Yeah, running on in. It is a time and a location showing up into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. 925 in the morgue made a generous donation during our 7th anniversary live stream special. And that is why he is going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the live stream or through the Patreon or the merch store or anything like that, that's fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, 925 in the morgue. Let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to go ahead and... What's our first story? I already forgot. Okay. New vehicle. Here we go, 925 in the morgue. We got a brand new vehicle for you. He's like, yes. He's all dressed up in a tuxedo. I always dress up nice when new vehicles are introduced. I'm going to toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit dump truck. We've never had this before. I don't know why. Probably because it's like the slowest, loudest vehicle possible, and it smells like trash. Everyone climb on board the Dead Rabbit. I already forgot the name of it. Everyone climb on board the Dead Rabbit dump truck as 925 in the morgue hangs off of the back like a garbage man. People are like, I'm not going to support your show if you're going to make fun of me. I'm not wearing a tuxedo. I'm not a garbage man. I'll get back there, trash man. Hang off the back of this dump truck. As we're driving it, you're like trying not to get compacted. I'm like, oh, what does this button do? Dude, we hear you screaming. We're driving 925 in the morgue's hanging off the back of the Dead Rabbit dump truck. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command and headed all the way out to the boonies. Beep, beep, beep. Throw in that trash. We're headed all the way out to the boonies, also known as BFE. If you're not familiar with the boonies, basically is a colloquial term in America for the middle of nowhere. A rural part of the county, which is actually a great location for a dump. I've been to a couple dumps in my life. And some are pretty cool. Some are actually like, it's an endless sea of trash. And you stand there, you stand on top of it and seagulls are attacking you. You're like, oh yes, humanity has reclaimed this puny planet away from the lame-o monkeys and the weak-willed fish. Look at this sea of garbage. And you're allowed, I don't know if you're allowed to go through the trash though. I remember I went with my brother a long time ago to throw something away. It's trash as far as the eye could see. There's trucks coming in and out. And I was like, can I, walk around? And my brother's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And Gary's probably hoping I'd get lost in there and never have to see me again. Yeah, Jason, you and your stupid questions get lost in the sea of trash. I went to the dump here once in Hood River a couple years ago. I had to throw out a microwave. It wasn't as impressive. It was just like a garbage pile. I was like, what do you call this trash? I'm all kicking it over. Where I come from, trash as far as the eye can see. But yeah, you go to dumps, throw stuff away and all that stuff. Well, it seems to be more like the little dump that this story takes place. We're about to meet a guy, let's call him Dane. We don't have his real name. The story takes place around the year 2018. Now, Dane lives in a rural area, and he needs to take some stuff to the dump. This isn't his first rodeo. He's taken garbage and tossed it in there before. He knows the way, he knows the people, and he knows when it's open. Dane's local dump is open 2 days a week. Wednesday, 1:30 to 5:30 p.m., and Saturday, 9 to 4 p.m. Those are the only days you can bring your garbage out here and toss it in a big old pile. Dane had to drop some stuff off, and he was like, okay, cool, I don't work on Wednesday. I'll get all my garbage together, throw it in the back of the truck, head on out. And when he gets there, he sees the attendant, who we will call Tony, and he knows Tony. Listen, I've been to a dump 2 times in my life. I don't know how Dane goes so much. He's like, oh, Wednesday's coming up, dump day. I know the exact hours. I know the employees who work there. I'm sure some people throw away more stuff than others. But anyways, he seems to be really on the garbage gossip line. He knows everyone who works there. It's just one guy. It's not that hard to remember one name. But anyways, he takes his trash down to the dump. He sits there. He talks to Tony for a while. Hey, anything new? No, just trash. Parasites. There's new parasites infesting my body, Dane. But other than that, no, same old, same old. Well, he drops his garbage off, he talks to Tony for a while, and then it's time for him to leave. Tony's driving home from the dump. He gets about a half a mile away when all of a sudden, Dane began to feel lightheaded. Oh, those parasites work fast, wow. No, he's driving home and he starts to feel really lightheaded. He starts to feel so lightheaded, he doesn't think he's safe to drive. So he does the responsible thing, he pulls over and he's kind of sitting there for a while. And it's not just that he feels dizzy all of a sudden. The word he uses is he feels strange. We've all been lightheaded, we've all been dizzy, we've all been nauseous, but there was something else that Dane was feeling right now. He really couldn't put his finger on it. He pulls over, he takes a deep breath. He's sitting there in the car. I need to clear my head. He turns down the car radio. He's sitting now on the side of the road in his silent truck. But Dane realizes something at this point. When he reaches over to turn down the radio, he sees that it's only 11 a.m. He goes, what? He goes, that's not true. And I know that for a fact. It's after 1:30 p.m. I don't know exactly what time it is, but I know it's not 11 a.m. because he knows the dump isn't open until 1:30 at the earliest. He thinks there's something wrong with his car clock. That would be the obvious answer. But because he just doesn't feel right, he just feels odd in this moment, that strange feeling, that lightheaded feeling, he pulls out his phone and he looks at the time on his phone. 11 a.m. What? He makes a U-turn in his truck and he begins driving back towards the dump. Now remember, he had only driven a half a mile away. He makes that U-turn, he's headed back. When he gets to the dump, the gate is locked. There's no Tony around, no attendant. This is how the dump would be at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday because it's not open yet. And Dane can't make heads or tails of this. He gets out and he looks. All of the trash that he had tossed into his truck to take to the dump is no longer in his truck. But as he looks around the outside of the dump, it's not on the side of the road either. The trash he took is vanished into a junkyard that's not open yet. Dane doesn't really know what to make of this. He gets in his truck and he drives away and he's just like, what in the world was that? Did I leave the junk at home? Am I going to go home to the trash at home? Trash is gone at his house. He can't really figure it out and he goes, well, I think there's one thing that I can do, one person I can talk to. So later that week on a Saturday, Dane drove back out to the dump. I don't know if he had more stuff to throw away or if he needed some answers, but he drives out to the dump and he sees Tony there. He's like, hey, Tony, what's up? And they're talking a bit, and Dane goes, hey, I got something weird to ask you, but Wednesday, do you remember when I came down here and dropped off some garbage? Tony goes, no, I don't remember that. You didn't come out here on Wednesday. You sure? Yeah, I would remember you dumping trash out. Yeah, I totally would remember that. Well, Tony, did you open early that day? Were you open early? And Tony goes, no, we never open early. 1:30 on Wednesdays when we open. What, Dane, what's going on? I don't know. Dane didn't put in his story when he posted this online. He posted it underneath the name Dane Train 05. That's why I picked that name. I don't know if he explained to Tony exactly what happened, Because this is one of those stories that it falls outside the accepted paranormal lore. You can tell a good friend that you think your house is haunted. You could tell a really, really good friend, a close confidant, that you think aliens have abducted you. Most people don't talk about that at a dinner party. They'll freely talk about ghosts. There are things that are more socially acceptable in the realm of the paranormal. Saying, I showed up at your location and talked to you, and then as I drove away, I traveled 2 hours back in time, but all of my garbage disappeared. That's a little trickier to explain. It's a little trickier for the average person to go, what? I mean, you know what I mean? If someone tells you their house is haunted, you understand what that means. And people ask questions, did anyone ever die in your house? Is someone close to you died recently? What could it be? That is cursed items? Could it be something that... This type of story, there's not even a real starting point for someone unlike us, who have a general grasp of the world of the weird. And I think people who listen to this show, it's more than a general grasp. This is for people who really, really love the paranormal and are looking for the weirdest stories, things like this. Because what's the starting point? Is it time warp? Alternate reality? Alien abduction? It's interesting because what's the starting point to even begin this discussion? As well as you know somebody, this would probably be a story you would either tell anonymously online or tell people that you really, really knew wouldn't think you were a loon. Because the obvious answer is, well, Dane, are you okay? Maybe you're coming to the junkyard too much. Maybe the parasites have taken control of your brain. It sounds insane. But is it? It's very interesting. When Dane posted this, someone else posted saying, you know what? Probably a less dramatic version of the same story, just setting your expectations. But this guy goes, you know, something happened to me before. About 15 years ago, so 2010, I bought a JVC television set. I bought the television set. Eventually we moved, and I ended up taking the television set and I put it in the front room of the house. Later on, I needed another TV for the back room. And I go, you know what, I'm just going to buy the exact same brand, exact same model, because I like the model that I have right now. I'm going to buy another JVC. It'll be perfect. So he goes to the store, he buys the exact same make and model television set, and while he's waiting for the television to be loaded up into his car, he begins to feel lightheaded. The salesperson wheels out an LG television. Life's Good brand. And the second guy, we didn't give him a name, we'll call him Ashton. Ashton is standing at the store and he goes, oh, that's not the television that I wanted. But he goes, whatever, I'll just get it anyways. Which is an odd thing to do, right? I mean, like, I'm very, very research heavy when I buy any sort of electronics. I'm a brand loyalist because it's worked so well in the past. He goes, whatever, I'll just get the LG anyways. Not the same television he has at home, the television that he loves, but whatever. So the LG TV is loaded up into his car. He drives home. It turns out that the television that he had previously purchased, the television that was in the front room of this new house, the television that they had had for quite a while, was not a JVC. It was an LG. And he goes, what? That's impossible. That was a JVC. His wife said, no, honey, that was an LG. Just like the television you just got. Wow, you got the same one. That's perfect, because we already know how this one works, and we really like it. And to this day, Ashton is insistent that the original television set was a JVC, and he ordered another JVC. They brought out an LG. He went home. His television had always been an LG. That was posted online by someone going by the name Ashton8177, so that's why I chose that name as well. We have a similarity of a physical effect to the phenomenon, whatever it is. See, in that second story, I would think more alternate reality. And for one reason or another, he shifted to the LG verse, and now he's here. He's joined the rest of us. Why? Who knows? Why that being the change that he recognized? Who knows? The first story involved time travel. Going back in time 2 hours is quite... I mean, think about how much stuff can happen to you in 2 hours traveling. And again, minimum, it's actually more than 2 hours because it opened at 1:30. He didn't say he got there exactly when it opened. But think about it. He had at least, I know my math is bad. I kept saying 2 hours, 11, 12. He had at least 3.5 hours at time travel, if not more, backwards. Imagine what you could do if you could go back in time that amount on a pivotal day. It would change your entire life. You could change the lives of everyone around you. That's not anything to sneeze at. I wonder if the lightheadedness is almost, it could be the side effect of your body transitioning from one reality to the next. Could be a side effect. It could be not a side effect, but it could be trying to think of the right word, but something to prepare the body for the transfer. It could not be the side effect, it could be a benefit. Because you're having a biological human travel through reality, which we've covered a ton of stories like that, but they almost always involve someone almost dying, or as far as they're concerned, dying in a horrible car accident. The next thing they know, they're in a reality where that car accident didn't happen. We have a ton of episodes like that. I'll put them in the show notes. This one's just people just hanging out. And does the body need to be prepared in some way for that shift? Fascinating stuff. I mean, the mundane daily lives that we all live, and even then the paranormal, the world of the weird, can spring up in the most unlikely of places. And going back to the first story one more time, and then we'll move on. What happened to the trash? Like, it would be one thing if he traveled back in time, he looked at his clock, it was 11 a.m., and his truck bed was still full of garbage. Then I don't even think he would have ever told anyone this story. He would have thought, well, did I hallucinate that? Did I, fall asleep and dream while I was driving? Was it some sort of weird false memory? Am I losing my mind? But the fact that the garbage was missing, and I thought it was real interesting because he said when he pulled up to the dump after he made the U-turn and he saw that the garbage was not in his truck, he started looking around. He goes, maybe I absentmindedly emptied it out of my truck onto the side of the road. Like, he was still looking for a logical explanation, and that would work. How many times do we move stuff around absent-mindedly? But it wasn't in his truck, and it wasn't on the side of the road. It's not like he was hey, Tony, how's it doing? He's talking to no one as he's throwing stuff into the gully there right next to the dump. The trash disappeared. It wasn't in his truck, it wasn't outside the dump, and it wasn't at his house. So where did it go? What would be interesting is if he asked Tony, hey, you said I didn't come here on Wednesday, but can we look through your garbage heap and see if we can find the stuff that I believe I dropped off on Wednesday? That would be a clue, right? Whatever it was. I mean, if you scoured the dump for the garbage you dropped off and couldn't find it, then that might really point towards you traveling to an alternate reality. Two things. One, he would have to be clear. He would have to tell Tony what had happened, and that might just be too much to tell someone who you know and you talk to, but maybe you aren't so close that you could share a story like this that really makes you sound like a lunatic. That'd be the first obstacle. If he didn't tell Tony about it, he couldn't really do that. Secondly, you'd be looking for trash in a trash heap. Right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, oh, this is my broken microwave. Oh, and there's my JVC TV over there. I mean, is it possible to even find a collection of garbage in a trash heap? Could you verify this story? Fascinating stuff, though. The whole thing with the feeling lightheaded, what's going on with that? The second guy with the television said it was interesting. If I spent my time researching televisions and I wanted the exact same television, I think you guys would feel the same, and they bring out the wrong television, we would say, no, we don't want that one. That's the wrong one. But I think in that moment, he was already in another reality. And he basically had two memories. One, where he had bought an LG television set. So when the new LG got wheeled out, he goes, oh, that's the exact television I wanted. But then half of his brain was still remembering a reality he was no longer part of. He goes, that's not the right TV. But he said, I took it anyways. That's something that we would not do. we'd go, no, this is not the TV I researched. This is not the TV that I want. I want the JVC one. But I think he was already in a new reality and he had the memories from both. So that's why he was okay with having that one loaded into his car for him to drive home. Fascinating stuff. Absolutely fascinating stuff. 925 of the morgue. Let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world famous Carpenter copter. We're leaving behind the dump. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Singapore? We're headed all the way out to Singapore. Specifically, we're headed out to Tekong, Singapore. Guys, get your rifles ready. Check them. Yeah, it looks right. I don't know what a rifle's supposed to look like. There's a trigger on it. Good. Everyone make sure you got on your uniform. Got a little bit of Gatorade in case you lose some electrolytes. It's go time. Go. Everyone's jumping out of the Carpenter copter, running around Tekong Island. Because this entire island is one big military base. Tekong Island used to be just an ordinary island. You had people living on it. It was full of wildlife. And then the Singapore military said, you know what, that island, we should build a military base there. And people were like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. You can do lots of training on it, running around in the jungle part of the island, and then just walking around the regular part of the island, walking through a neighborhood. They set up the basic military training center there. But over time, the military took over the entire island. Not by force. I mean, they paid people to move. They're like, hey, you have a nice house here, but we want to use this house for military stuff, so here's some money, go move somewhere else. The island, as of today, is just one giant training center. But that's not why it's notable. I thought that was interesting. I never really heard of anything like that before. An entire city getting taken over by the military so they can train in it. That's not why it's known locally, though. Everyone, if you mention Tekong, if you mention the island of Tekong in Singapore, no one's really going to talk about the military base. No one's going to talk about the wildlife. No one's going to talk about how people used to live there before the military took it over. Every person is going to mention the ghosts. This island is known across the country as being so haunted that it kind of makes sense. I mean, think about it. I'm sure there were people living there and they're like, I hope the military takes over this island because I'm constantly being attacked by ghosts. Or if not, take over the island. I don't know, just stop the ghost attacks. Highly haunted. It's quite a terrifying place. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because you want to train your military to be able to fight bad guys. And bad guys are scary, right? So you train them in the scariest place possible. The special forces, they have to train in a haunted house. They're like, okay, you survived the deep water drills. You survived the time where we shot you 6 times to see if you could survive. You've passed every single test of special forces training, guys. They're all bandaged up. They're all, I didn't know that was really part of the test. I thought you were joking, drill sergeant. Nope, we really were going to shoot you multiple times. Now you have to spend 2 nights alone in a haunted house. Now, we don't have enough haunted houses to go around, so some of you guys are going to luck out. End up in the Winchester Mystery House, or something lame like that, but others of you will experience true terror for 48 hours. So we find some abandoned house where a family was murdered. They go in. I mean, that would make sense. That would make sense to do that. Because at that point, imagine if you spent 48 hours trapped in a house that was truly haunted. There was a demonic presence there that was tormenting your body, mind, and soul. What would you be scared of after that? If you knew what true evil was, if you had faced it down and survived, then what's ISIS to you? After that, you could run into a machine gun nest and not feel any fear. The ultimate soldier. But that's not why, I don't think that's why, at least. It seems that Singapore has a serious problem with ghosts. They didn't pick this place because they thought it would be fun to scare all of their troops and make them battle-hardened before the first bullet was fired. No, they have a serious problem with it. And they have a unique way of dealing with it. Or is it unique? My hypothesis is that it's not. I think militaries around the world do this. Singapore is the only one who admits it. But before we get into that, let me give you a little bit more background about Tekong as far as the ghost stories go. For example, let's look at this one. we're going to meet a young soldier. We don't have his real name. We're going to call him Bruce. He was doing navigation exercises where basically you're plopped in the middle of nowhere on this island and you have to find these waypoints. And him and his team were doing these, and they go, okay, this is at nighttime. They go, okay, it's dark out. I think if we split up, we can find these waypoints quicker. We'll meet back here. So they fan out. So Bruce is walking through the jungle and looking for the waypoint. He's like, oh, it has to be around here somewhere. It's a muggy night. It's really hot, actually. He's wiping sweat off of his forehead. He's pushing jungle leaves aside, trying to find his goal, when all of a sudden he hears a voice say, Bruce. Bruce looks around and, thinks it's one of his dudes. Doesn't see any of his fellow troops nearby. He continues to kind of make his way. He's walking down paths in this jungle now, trying to find the waypoint. Bruce. Oh, wait, no, that didn't happen. A different story. Okay, here, hold on. Bruce, all that built up, that was terrifying. That was so scary, and now there's no resolution. Okay, the setup's the same. You're like, Jason, just edit all that out. It's confusing. Yeah, but it's kind of scary. So I'm going to leave it in. Bruce is with his team. It's at night. They have to fan out to find these waypoints. It's a muggy, hot night. Bruce is wiping sweat off of his brow, but nobody calls his name. It's the same story, but nobody's calling his name. He is walking through the area, though, and he starts to feel really, really weird. And the hair starts to stand up on the back of his neck. He doesn't feel right, and he thinks, I might be having, heat exhaustion. That's what I'm thinking's going on. Why don't I feel good? I am walking through the jungle in the middle of the night, and it's really hot out. That could be it. I must just be exhausted. Oh, wait, he does hear his name being called. Listen, I'll be honest, I'm recording this at 5 a.m. So he did hear his name being called. Bruce. Anyways, he thinks he's having heat exhaustion. He's hearing things. And you're like, Jason, all the tension's been completely destroyed. Okay, anyways, he meets it back up with his team. And he goes, guys, I didn't find my waypoint, but I don't think I feel good. And he notices that 2 of his fellow soldiers look super nervous. And Bruce is like, yeah, I'm not that sick, guys. You guys don't have to be that upset about it. I mean, I might be that sick. I did hear someone calling my name out, or did I? And the 2 troops say, hey, Bruce, we saw you walking through the jungle. And you weren't alone. He's like, what? Yeah, I was. And they go, no. There were 2 people walking right next to you. An old man and a little boy were walking with you through the jungle. That's a super common sight on this island. You will either see an old man and a young child who they assume is the grandfather and the grandson, or an old woman and a young child, grandma, grandson. So that's interesting. You have to think, is it 2 separate entities, a grandfather or a grandmother, or is it one entity that is choosing different forms? And I would assume it's one entity choosing different forms, because there's no sightings of a grandpa and a grandma together. Which I would argue that if you have some sort of paranormal force that is hiding its true nature, it is more likely an evil force. Good does not disguise itself, unless you're on a spy mission, or you're Dana Carvey. But good generally does not disguise itself. It'll appear as it is. I think especially like a ghost, a standard ghost, wouldn't even know how to do that. But I think it's one entity and it's changing its form. And really, it would make sense. Bruce didn't see it. But some people had a better relationship with their grandpa than they did with their grandmother. So, depending on who is being sought out by this spirit, who is being targeted by it, it would choose what form it may feel you react better to. There's been a lot of reports of ghosts setting off alarms at the military base, which sucks because it's not like your car alarm where you can be like, whatever, my car alarm is going off. It's a military installation. So every single time an alarm goes off, they have to treat it as some sort of military issue, right? You can't be like, oh yeah, sorry boss, I saw the alarm going off over by those nuclear reactors, but I figured it might just be a ghost. Is all the plutonium's missing. Whenever there's an alarm that goes off, even if they think it's a ghost, they have to go check it out. And you go, well, maybe people are constantly breaking onto the base and they just thinks it's ghosts. Ghosts have been caught on CCTV setting off alarms, according to reports. And there's a ton of reports on this. The ghost that they saw pop up on the CCTV, this is what they saw. This white shadowy figure walks into the ammo dump, which again is a place that you need to have alarms for, and if the alarm goes off, you need to check it out. The video shows, and we don't have the video, this is what we've been told, but the video shows a white shadow walk into the ammo dump, and then the security camera from inside the ammo dump, you began to see the white shadow run around the dump insanely fast. You could barely keep track of it, and then it just vanished. Now, you could go, that was a bug, that was a glitch, that was all these things. Whatever it was, it set off the alarm of the ammo dump. That's why they were watching the video footage. That's why they had to go out there to make sure it wasn't some spy or some thief or some evil military dudes in there trying to take their ammo. So when they start a war, they're like, let's go to the base and load up, and there's no ammo there. They're like, we probably should have checked this before the war started. A lot of people, because what happens is, you have people who used to live there who reported these ghost sightings, and now it's all a military base. And you're constantly getting troops, young men, I don't know if women are in their military, but you're getting young people into the military, and this is where they all train. And you could go at a certain point, well, maybe this is just, when college freshmen move into the dorm, they all hear the story about Bloody Dorothy, the girl who committed suicide by slicing her face up 1,000,000 times, and now she walks the halls. Those types of urban legends get spread. These are not all being told by privates. They go, they do their training, they head back home, and they go, yeah, the alarms kept going off, and it was ghosts. We have a story from a sergeant, and these may not be their actual designations, but these are the U.S. equivalent designations. We have a story from a sergeant who we will call Carl. He was in his cubicle one night in his office, and he's up late. He's doing work. He hears someone knocking at the door, and he just goes, come in. But the door doesn't open. There's just more knocking. Let me do a knocking sound effect. Come in. This sergeant, this guy whose job it is to ready other soldiers for combat and lead them, he's sitting in his cubicle, and the way that the cubicle is set up is he has these walls around him, it's like 3 walls, and he can't see the door. He can't see the door because he's sitting down, but he's not too far from it. He hears this knocking, he says, come in, and no one does. He starts to get scared. Because he's heard all the same stories, too. He knows Tekong is haunted. He said, I was too scared to stand up. I was just sitting in my chair. And eventually the knocking stopped. But then I heard the door open. Carl's sitting in his cubicle and he can't see the door. But he hears it open up. And then he begins to hear a... What's this, wet ham slapping on the ground? Jason, are you not wearing pants again and making sound effects on your thighs? He's hearing footsteps walk through the office, and then they stop. Carl's sitting there in his cubicle, and it's just dead silent in the office. Carl's sitting down at his desk, scared to move. And that's when he sees something begin to peek over the wall of his cubicle. He described it as an eerie-looking head. Carl took off running out of the cubicle and didn't even look back. Just ran out of the cubicle, ran out of the door, and probably went to the bathroom or changed his pants and decided whatever work he was staying up late to do, he could do it another time. That's not a story that, I mean, think about it. Like, I get it, urban legends are passed around, but for a sergeant to report that story, if you reported that story in the U.S. military, you probably want to get promoted after that. It could definitely hurt your career in America. For a sergeant to say that over there and for that story to filter out into the community, it's because everyone experiences these things. It's not unusual, so you would feel more open talking about it. We don't just have the new incoming soldiers hearing these ghost stories and then spreading them. This is an issue that the top brass of the base has had to take care of. There's also a lot of really odd stories, like those traditional ghost stories, right? The creepy head looking over the cubicle. I apologize if you work in a cubicle late at night, because that's a creepy image. If it had been just a grandma looking over the cubicle, that would have been terrifying in its own way, but a eerie, almost inhuman head looking over at you, that's a different level of fear. There's basic stories, like people hearing strange noises all over the base. You can't really place where the sound is coming from, or even what the sound is. But then you have stories, there is a bunk area, like because it's broken up into dorm-type situations. All the soldiers aren't sleeping in one building. So it's broken up into different bunks. In one particular bunk, at 1:17 in the morning, all the soldiers woke up at the same time. So it's like, how do you even catalog that? That sounds almost alien at that point. They all woke up at 1:17. They don't know why. You had a report of one soldier, when he was trying to sleep in his bunk, he would hear the sound of someone singing Chinese opera. No one else would hear it, but he heard it. And he could hear whoever was singing this Chinese opera. He couldn't see anyone, so supposedly he's a ghost, I'm assuming. The sound would move around the room like someone was walking around singing Chinese opera. But then, I mean, like, that's scary, and it's a little hard to fall asleep. But then the ghost singing out Chinese opera would walk right up to him and sing it right into his ear. La 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 la. I mean, like, that's kind of funny. If I was a ghost, I'd be doing all sorts of annoying things like that. Oh, you like making glasses hover? Not me. I like to wait till right before they're asleep and then jump on them. I jump on them and go booga booga, wake them up. He goes, this kept happening. It happened 2 nights in a row. He would go to lay down and he'd hear someone singing Chinese opera walking around the room until eventually he walked right up to him, screamed it in his ear. He was telling people about this. They were like, hey man, you look really tired. I noticed you were firing blindly into the jungle. He goes, yeah, I'm real tired. I haven't been able to sleep. The Chinese opera ghost has been screaming in my ears. Well, he was telling people about this, and one of his friends gave him a talisman and said, here, try this. This should protect you from whatever that is. So the young man used the talisman the next night, and it never happened again. He had to have that talisman with him when he went to bed, and it stopped. And again, this is the culture of the base. You have people telling these ghost stories and other guys saying, oh, you know what, my mom packed me extra talismans just for this thing. I got talismans, I got all of these herbs. They are prepared for it because they know it's a possibility. So much so, I found this absolutely fascinating. We're going to take a quick look at a story of a guy, we'll call him Tony. And he goes, listen, I was in the military, I was at Tekong, and I kept hearing this crying sound. It was at night. It wasn't every night, but I'd hear this crying sound. I figured it was a cat. I figured it was some sort of cat just freaking out somewhere. Well, then he starts to hear reports from his fellow soldiers. One of them goes, hey, dude, you won't believe it. We were out on patrol the other night, and I heard this crying out in the middle of nowhere. And it was really creepy. I didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden, someone called my name. Tony goes, is your name Bruce? He's like, no, that was a different story. No, this was another story with me. I was out and I heard this crying and then someone called my name. And you would get a couple of reports like that. A couple of soldiers were saying that was happening. The crying, and then it would stop, and then you'd hear your own name. Well, that's out on patrol. Now, Tony hears a story. One of his fellow soldiers recently had to go to the bathroom. You know, they're all in the bunk area, and he's like, I gotta go pee. I gotta go drain the main vein. Gets up, he walks into the bathroom, and he hears crying in the bathroom. The crying stops and the soldier hears something call out his name in this empty bathroom. So it's not just relegated to the training grounds in the jungle. This is on base. This is happening right here. And, you know, all the soldiers are getting disturbed, but again, this is nothing new for Tekong. Tony and his fellow soldiers, they ended up talking to their master sergeant. And they go, hey, what's up with this place? Like, I guess we always heard stories that it's haunted or whatever, but, like, something's calling for us. We hear this crying and something's calling for us. What should we do? And the master sergeant goes, yeah, you know, welcome to Tekong. This place is pretty haunted. You're going to hear stuff like this. Just don't respond to it. If you hear it, just ignore it. Which, again, makes you think that they have a protocol for it. If the master sergeant goes, you guys are just dumb, you guys have been listening to stories from the older soldiers. No, he's like, no, this is a real problem. We don't know how to get rid of it. It's really bad, honestly. It's infecting every inch of this island. Just ignore it. And after that, the soldiers in Tony's group set up a buddy system to go to the bathroom. Because they weren't going to go in there alone. Soldiers. These are trained soldiers that are going to risk their lives to save others. And they're like, I'm not going to the bathroom by myself. But it wasn't just them, right? They're just being prudent. It stops being a story about a bunch of scaredy cats. And it's like, this thing's a threat. This thing's such a threat, the military can't get rid of it. So let's be safe. Let's try to take care of this. Now, the soldiers, Tony explains, up to this point, would wear jockey hats while on patrol. It gives you a little bit of head protection, gets you used to wearing a helmet. They'd have these jockey hats. So it's like, you know, like a horse jockey hat. But then all of a sudden, the word comes down from top brass, we're ditching the jockey helmets. Everyone's going to start wearing their berets. The berets are color-coded depending on what you do. So green is for the army, red is for commandos, so on and so forth. Each beret has an emblem on it, which is very much like the berets we have for our military over in the United States. I believe the British have the same thing. They have their emblem on it. That'll show their unit or show where they're at. If they're training, it may have a different emblem and all of this. Very typical across the world to have the berets with the emblems. Well, one day Tony asked the warrant officer named Enoch, and he goes, hey, Enoch, you know, I was curious, why we stop wearing the jockey hats? Like, the berets are cool and all, but, you know, the jockey hats, they did provide protection. We are walking through the jungle. Stuff can fall on us. We can trip and bang our head. Why do we switch to the beret? And Enoch goes, well, you know, it's weird story. Welcome to Tekong. We switched to the berets specifically because the heads of the military realized there was such a problem on this island that we needed to have blessed icons on us at all times. Enoch explained that those weren't just little emblems denoting what unit they were in or things like that. He goes, we actually had those images themselves blessed. And then the emblem is blessed when it is put onto the beret. That is how we are trying to protect our soldiers. We are giving you divine protection. You just think it's an emblem. Everybody does. But it may actually be saving your life. It's interesting, right? The idea of icons and images warding off evil spirits is kind of as old as the stories of evil spirits themselves. The idea of a certain image protecting you goes back centuries, if not millennia. You know, you could draw something, you could wear something to ward off the evil eye. I mean, we're going that far back. And it doesn't have to be religious imagery. Obviously, a lot of people say, I have this crucifix on my wall, or I wear this cross to protect me, and that's totally fine. That can obviously work as well. But what if you have the emblem, blessed, could give you a layer of protection, or the emblem itself, the design, the combination of images in there, while it may look cool because you have a little navy emblem and it's a picture of like an anchor and a picture of the globe and it's all sewn together and maybe there's a little like mermaid at the top of it. But those images were chosen not because someone looked at a maritime clip art book, but because those images in some way, when they're combined, can provide some sort of spiritual protection. Do the images themselves do it? Do the images have to be blessed? Do they both work in tandem? I mean, it is really interesting that I understand the badges are to identify each other. Soldiers can go, oh, I'm special ops and you're maintenance crew because you have that and I have that. But, I mean, they do serve a legitimate purpose. Also, it's a sense of pride, right? You've earned this badge. You're of this particular group. Whether it is maintenance or special ops, there's skilled knowledge in both. It's a badge of honor. But could there also be another meaning behind it? And you go, well, maybe, but, Tekong Island was highly haunted, and maybe they were just telling the men this to put their fear at ease. Well, remember, it wasn't just the men who believed this. This went all the way up. They knew this was a problem. You could go, well, it's just the Singapore military. What's interesting is Tony said later, long after that, he was talking to some friends of his who were Thai police officers. Ex-Thai police officers. They weren't serving at the time, but they were officers in Thailand, and he was talking to them, and Tony brings up this story, talking about Tekong. Obviously, you'd want to tell everyone about the crazy stuff there. And when he brought up the emblems, the cops kind of look at each other, and they go, oh, no, we do that too. What? Yeah, it's kind of odd, but in Thailand, our police emblems on our berets are blessed to protect us from evil spirits. I find this idea of blessed sigils, blessed emblems, 100% completely believable. And what's funny is that this is one of the topics I've brought up a couple times on the show, and even among ardent Dead Rabbit Radio listeners, they don't agree, which is fine, right? It's not like everything I say you have to agree with, but it's probably, in a way, the most controversial topic I talk about on this show. The idea that the world's militaries and governments have plans to deal with spiritual problems, demons, and ghosts. We spend millions and millions of dollars a year trying to figure out what UFOs are. We have all of these congressional hearings, and I do believe the same thing happens, not the congressional hearings part, but I do believe the same thing happens with study of the paranormal. We know that the U.S. government and the Soviet Union have done studies on psychic powers, telepathy, remote viewing, telekinesis, things like that. We know that's a fact. We know that they spend a ton of money trying to investigate the UFO phenomenon. But when you bring up the fact that, and the government's also probably doing the same thing with ghosts, it's often hit with just silence. It's an odd thing that people don't like this topic, right? I mean, here's the thing. So part of it could be it's just a little bit of a stretch. I think it's a little too superstitious for a lot of people. Even people who believe in the paranormal, they go, I don't really think that the government's investigating them. I do. I think they're spending a ton of money. And the reason why it's never come to light is, one, no one's ever really asked the question, how much money is the government spending trying to communicate with ghosts? Find out first if ghosts are real. Is there a life after death? And if you can solve that first problem, which I do believe that those two things are real, there are ghosts and there's life after death and there are demons, there's evil spirits out there, then you start to go, how do we weaponize them? How do we control them? And how do we defend our troops from them? And I think a lot of this would be done on the sly. Tony found out about it. And those Thai police officers found out about it, and now you've found out about it. But for most of the people wearing those emblems over in Thailand and Singapore, they had no clue. They was just like, oh, okay, I got a new hat. Cool. It's a little bit more breezy than this jockey hat. And they're not thinking why. Tony asked the question why, and he got his answer. And I do believe that across the globe, governments and militaries are also taking spiritual steps to protect their soldiers. Because the world is dangerous enough. But when you're fighting in remote regions, when you find yourself standing in places where civilization simply stopped growing 200-300 years ago, some windswept desert, or you're tromping deep through the jungle, where no human has marched through, maybe ever, primal places on this planet. And just haunted locations in general, like Tekong. Cursed locations. You would need to acknowledge that this was real, and how do we protect our soldiers from it? And I believe that this is being done all over the globe. It's a very simple fix. And it's also one that can be done without raising any public suspicion. If you issued every soldier a crucifix and said, okay, guys, you got to have this, and don't go out at night. Don't go out at night. Don't invite anyone back to the barracks. People are like, what? Are we fighting vampires all of a sudden? No, what? No, why would you suspect that? Also, your bullets are dipped in garlic. It's an easy way to protect your soldiers without raising any suspicion. Now, here's the thing, too, and I'll end it like this. What I think is interesting is you may not believe in that conspiracy theory. You may not believe in paranormal at all. There's a lot of people who listen to this show who don't. But I will say there's enough people in power around the world who do believe in the paranormal and the supernatural and superstitions and all of that, that probably don't even state it openly when they're running for office. There's enough people in militaries and in positions of power who believe in the forces of good and evil on a metaphysical plane that they would push for this. Discreetly, but they would push for this because they believe that this is going on. Fascinating, right? Here's the thing. Whether or not it works, you can debate about. I think it's being done. You can debate about that too. No debate on that one subject. But everything else, no, we can debate on that. And I always get emails. People think I'm off my rocker for this, which is odd considering all the other things that I've said. But yeah, super controversial whenever I bring this up. People go, what? What are you talking about, man? Whether or not the blessing of the emblems work, I do believe that governments and militaries are doing it. And I believe that they are continuing to try to find a way to protect their soldiers, not just physically, but spiritually. And they may have found the most discreet way to do it. Just blessing the ordinary emblems these soldiers wear on their uniforms every day. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.